Pushkin. I'm Emily Nagoski, and this is the Come As You Are podcast, where I answer questions about sex with science. And in this episode, we're doing something a little different. Mo, what are we doing today?
Hey, Emily. So today we're going to do an episode called Real Talk, Fake Sex. And here's how it works. I'm going to play you a clip from pop culture. It could be anything about sex. And you, as an expert sex educator, are going to break it down for me and for the listeners. And very importantly, at the end of the episode, I'm going to ask you to rate the scene from 0 stars to 5 stars.
Okay.
On the Emily Nagoski scale of how great is this scene in terms of like, is it violence portrayed as sex, or is it actually doing the work of sex educators everywhere and making everyone's sex life better?
Yep, pop culture can do everything in that range, yep.
I know that you are a little averse to pop culture.
Yeah, to say that I live under a rock is, maybe it's not an understatement, but it's very close to the description. But in particular, things about sexuality in pop culture. Because I'm here to answer questions about sex with science. Mm-hmm. And so many of the myths that people bring to me in their questions are things they learned from pop culture. So the reason I'm willing to experience this torture of listening to some pop culture thing is because I think it's important for us to break down the myths as they are represented to us. But some pop culture things are really positive. Some of them are really good. And it's worth highlighting those too.
Actually, let me just do a little survey really quickly so I get a sense of where you're coming from in your pop culture knowledge. Are you ready? Have you ever seen Sex and the City?
I have seen a fragment of one episode.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Have you ever seen the Tracee Ellis Ross show Girlfriends?
No.
Okay. Have you ever seen the show Sex Education on Netflix?
I have only seen the meme of the girl who says, "Have you read that book, Come As You Are, Emily Nagoski? It's really good." Just because like 100 people sent it to me.
Do you know most women's vulvas don't look like they do on Pornhub? I always thought mine was a bit ugly because it's not all tucked in, but actually it's dead normal.
You should read Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. It's a great book.
Okay, good to know that your starting place for pop culture references is media that you are mentioned in. Okay. So for this episode, I'm going to start with a softball for you. And I think it is something you have actually seen before because you mentioned that you love the show Ted Lasso.
Yes.
So you barely watch any TV, but what do you like about Ted Lasso?
It was just this summer that I started watching it, actually, because I was looking for something like really positive and uplifting without a whole lot of like stressful drama. And it hit that note and then some. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that it was going to have such interesting sex and relationship stories.
I started it because like everyone was talking about it, and then I was one of those things where I just pressed play on one episode, and then somehow like 8 hours later I had finished a whole season.
Oh yeah, and then your day is gone.
Yes, exactly. And I'm crying, and I'm like, can't stop thinking about these characters. And also I was so shocked because it's a sports show, and I'm not a sports fan.
Right, me either.
So I'm going to set this clip up for you. It starts in season 2, episode 2.
Oh.
And Roy Kent, as you know, the gruff, lovable former team captain, has recently announced, I know.
That was me probably.
I have a real life Roy Kent in my life, my brother-in-law, and it makes me just love the character so much. Oh my God. So Roy Kent recently announced that he's retiring from football, aka soccer. Right. And he's trying to figure out what to do next. In the meantime, he's living with his girlfriend Keely and coaching like a children's soccer team, which is
adorable.
So adorable because he takes it so seriously. So cute. Okay, so one day he comes home from coaching and he is looking for his girlfriend Keely, who's at home. And he finds her in bed with her phone. And she's making some noises.
What you doing there?
Nothing.
Why'd you throw your phone?
I thought that you were an intruder and I didn't want you to steal it.
All right, I'm going to pause this clip because I can tell you already have something to say.
So to begin with, I want to say it's a reality that in a long-term committed relationship, people who masturbate before the relationship may still masturbate solo, even though they have a partner. It is normal. And in a long-term relationship, especially a cohabiting relationship, if partners are masturbating solo, people might walk in on each other while masturbating. That's a thing that happens. Mm-hmm. And Keely's first response was to throw her phone. And that actually surprised me because she is a character who, I mean, I think of her as a person who would not be bothered by being interrupted or seen masturbating. Like, she's not afraid or ashamed about her masturbation. It's one of the things I love about her. It's what she's watching that she's worried he'll find out about. But if that's the case, it still makes her extraordinary because a lot of people, whether they're the one being walked in on or they're the one doing the walking in, might have this big flash of shame in their body because we have absolutely been taught to be ashamed of masturbation. So here we have close to ideal modeling of how to engage with the reality that a partner is masturbating solo, even though in a committed relationship.
Okay, so let's keep going with this scene.
Babe, come on, don't be embarrassed. Whatever it is, it's fine. I like watching couples have sex in the woods.
You do? Why?
Because I could never be that free. Come on, let me see. I should know what gets you going.
Okay, I'm going to pause again, and we're not done with the scene yet, but I feel like you're going to have some big sex educator energy reaction to what's happening here.
I love that Roy wants to know what she's watching, especially that he says, whatever it is, it's fine.
Right.
That's what makes it completely okay. If he wanted to know because he felt jealous of the porn or judgmental or wanted to affirm that he isn't grossed out by what she likes, that all would not be great. But instead, he's just purely curious. He wants to know because he feels like it could enhance his practice as a lover.
Right. He is not questioning out of a sense of vindictive, like, I should know what you're doing sexually because I'm your boyfriend.
Because I want to be in control of your sexuality.
Right.
Or there are some things that are okay and some things that are not okay. He's just like, whatever works for you, I want to know.
So I can help get you more turned on.
Right.
I love it.
And he's so confident in this, like, gorgeous, non-judgmental, curious attitude that they each have toward each other's sexual minds that he helps convince her that he really won't judge her by describing what he watches. And when she's surprised by that, instead of being judgmental, she just asks why. And he says, this is so important. He says the thing that characterizes much porn consumption. Like, a lot of people are going to relate to this. He says, I could never be that free. Whew. Why do you watch videos of people having sex in the woods? I could never be that free. Here we have Roy Kent. He is the quintessential, hyper-masculine, professional footballer. I could never be that free. He watches it because it's something he fantasizes about, but would never bring himself to do in real life. And it's amazing that he knows his limits. And like in my heart, I really hope that he is really welcoming and accepting of his limits and doesn't judge or shame himself for not wanting to have sex in a potentially public place because that hits his brakes. It's normal. I mean, it's normal for it not to hit the brakes, and it's normal for it to hit the brakes. And I hope that he accepts and welcomes and loves that he is who he is.
Honestly, one of the reasons I chose this scene is because of that line. I think you bring up such a good point because, like, sometimes the porn we watch or whatever we watch for stimulation isn't about something that we actually want to do in real life. It's not like it's a one-to-one. It's just hitting our accelerator or triggering our accelerator, right? Am I right? But it's not like necessarily we have to want to do that thing if we're watching it.
Exactly. The context of watching something that activates your accelerator is totally different from the context of actually doing something that maybe it activates the accelerator, but in real life it would hit the brakes, like having sex in the woods.
Right. I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I want to take a quick break before we get into the next part of the scene, where we talk about what Keely has been watching.
All right.
Okay, so we're back with a special pop culture analysis episode that we're calling Real Talk, Fake Sex. And in this episode, we are talking about Ted Lasso, one of the only contemporary shows that Emily Nagoski has seen.
That I have actually watched.
Okay, so Roy catches his girlfriend Keely masturbating to something on her phone. He asks to see what she's watching, and they have a little back and forth, a delightful back and forth about that. And then Keely hands him her phone. And we see that Keely has been watching a YouTube video of her boyfriend at a press conference.
I am announcing my retirement from...
Wow. Okay, so it turns out Keely is masturbating to her boyfriend announcing his retirement and crying about leaving the sport he loves. Oh my God.
The fuck? This is your kink? Me being pathetic?
You're not being pathetic. You're being passionate and vulnerable.
When he thinks about that video, he thinks that it's him being pathetic.
Yeah.
Oh. But Keely's like, it's not pathetic, it is passionate and vulnerable. It's this reframe that tells us what she really loves about him. Not that he's a football player, but that he can be passionate and vulnerable like that. For some reason, I love the characters who never smile in public, and they only ever in public express masculine emotions. And masculinity, you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to win, and you're allowed to be horny, and that's basically it. But if this stoic never smiles in public, never expresses other emotions, then you get him in private, and he shares with you their soft, squishy insides. You get to feel like you earned that tenderness and that vulnerability. That's Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice, right? In the beginning, he never smiles. He's never sweet. But in the second half, he comes back, and there's all this vulnerability and passion, and it's like he's this fried cheese stick of a man with his crispy exterior and the warm, gooey inside. Of course, it is hot that she is granted access to his mozzarella insides. And I actually think that the disappearance of Roy's vulnerability and passion after he retires makes really good sense. Of course, that goes away. Here's a guy with a job that intensely validates his performance of high masculinity. You know how there's high femme?
Yes.
This is high masculinity. He is hairy and strong and big. He's a professional athlete. And the confidence, there are people who chant his name because he's good at a sport. But because it's so validating, it gives him this confidence that turns into permission to reveal his vulnerability when he's with his girlfriend. She gets the gooey inside. He proves that he is masculine enough when he's on the pitch so that he doesn't have to prove that when he's alone with her. And now, because he has retired, he doesn't have that validation anymore. The confidence that comes from all of that validation, the confidence of that he knows he's masculine enough to be vulnerable with Keely. And of course she misses it. Of course she does.
After he sees what she's watching, Roy says, "This is your kink." I'm curious what you think about him using the word kink there. Maybe he's just using that term colloquially, but what's going on there?
I think he's really using it just to indicate that he doesn't understand why that would be sexy for her. In particular, when he finds it the opposite of sexy, he finds it humiliating. It would make sense for him to assume that what turns her on is his masculine self. She's dating a footballer. Why wouldn't she masturbate to a video of him scoring a literal goal? Because that's how he understands masculinity, that it's that performance that women are interested in. And I don't think at any point he thinks that she's turned on by a video of anyone crying, which would put it into I love watching people cry and that's what turns me on. I think he understands from the beginning that it's the video of him crying that turns her on.
It's interesting to me that Keely is turned on by this video, even though it's not sexual or explicit, per se. What do you make of that?
Not sexual according to whom? Because it clearly activates Keely's accelerator, right? As far as her brain is concerned, this is a sex-related stimulus so strong that any amount of brakes hitting does not interfere. She is into his emotion, his passion, his vulnerability. That it turns her on.
Okay, so now I want to bring you the last part of the scene. We leave the moment where they're talking about the video and the masturbation. The episode continues. Roy gets a new job as a pundit on TV talking about soccer, which is something that Keely had encouraged him to do because she thinks he'll love it. And he does. He loves it. So he comes home from his first day on the job and he's feeling overwhelmed with emotion, overwhelmed with happiness. But it's impossible to tell if Roy Kent is happy because he just looks permanently grumpy.
How'd it go? Come on, babe, say something. What, you just gonna pretend like you hated it? You were amazing. Shit, you really did hate it.
May I have your phone?
Okay, so let me just explain what's happening in the scene because you can't see it. Okay, so Roy takes Keely's phone and he starts looking something up on it, like typing into it. And he says to her, I want to thank you properly. Okay. And then he kneels in front of her, like in between her legs. He puts her AirPods in her ears. And then he hands her back her phone, tells her to press play, and it's the video of him crying at his retirement speech. So for the listeners, basically he is going down on her while she watches this video of him crying. And in scene.
So I've watched the whole series 3 times, and the first time I saw this, when I realized why he was putting in the AirPods, I gasped and my jaw dropped and I cried. I loved it so much because he's giving her what she likes in a way where he doesn't have to hear it himself. He just gets a big old mouthful of puss.
I didn't think about that like he is not turned on by it. So by giving her the AirPods, he doesn't even have to hear it. It's all for her.
Right.
And so for him to bring it back up, to be like, I know this works for you, and I have no shame about that, and I want it to keep working for you if it's working for you. Like, that really struck me.
I would like to point out that what he chooses, not only does he choose the video, he also chooses cunnilingus. Maybe they have intercourse later, but like he chooses cunnilingus first. And season 1 established for us that Keely likes cunnilingus. So he's choosing 2 things that really center and prioritize her pleasure.
Totally, yes. So imagine a real life Keely and Roy couple. Like, how would you see a video like this or a stimulus like this playing into their sex life? Because, I mean, I don't think they would want to be watching it all the time, or she would want to be watching it all the time.
It feels to me like in the story, it's fulfilling the role of the vulnerability and passion that she used to have access to directly through the man. And as he continues to feel validated and connected with the game he loves, which affirms his masculinity, he'll stay confident enough to be vulnerable with Keely and not lose the passion and that authenticity that she finds such a turn on.
So based on this scene and what you were talking about vulnerability and maybe things that turn people on being emotional, like, do you have any advice for real couples that might be turned on by vulnerability but struggling to access it with each other?
Yeah, I think the main thing to understand is that we act invulnerable for reasons. Whether you're following the it's a girl script you were handed or the it's a boy script you were handed, you were taught that certain emotions were acceptable and other emotions were not acceptable, and you literally were punished for expressing the emotions outside of the script that you were told was, here's everything you're allowed to say and do. So I was told that I was ugly when I frowned, right? And boys are told to be little men. Boys don't cry. We've actually been punished for these things. So if we struggle to display these things in front of our significant other, it's not for no reason.
Right. But there is a lot of sexy potential when we behave outside of our scripts.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, you know, I'm attracted to mostly femmes and women, and seeing them get angry is really hot to me. And that's something that is outside of the femme script, you know, that we're told is acceptable.
See, and what is it about the anger? It's not the anger per se, right, that's hot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It is the trust and authenticity that they're exhibiting with you, that they know that you welcome that from them, that it's okay, that you feel safe and you're not worried about them expressing anger in front of you. Like, we are connected in this moment in a way that is not obstructed by all the cultural noise about what emotions are acceptable.
Whew. That is a hot take. Damn.
I think it would be advanced to begin with. Tell me what you think about or watch when you masturbate. Some couples are ready for that conversation, but maybe just start with a gentler conversation about tell me some of the good things you like about our erotic connection, and gradually build up to tell me what you think about or watch when you masturbate.
I love that this has not turned into a conversation about watching stuff when you masturbate and couples, you know, watching different things, but really the deeper conversation about emotional erotic connection. I think we should take a break. What do you think?
Definitely. Cool down.
Yes, take a little cool down, get a cold glass of water, and when we get back, Emily, you're going to rate this scene as a sex educator. So, Emily, I have devised a 5-star rating system. It is a 0 to 5-star scale. 0 being an act of violence portrayed as erotica, maybe something you would have seen on Game of Thrones, not to name any names, but actually, yes, to name a name there. And 5 stars being like incredible, something that made your work as a sex educator easier.
I'm actually going to give this scene a 4.5.
Wow. Hell yeah.
A very high rating, right?
A very high rating.
Yeah, I mean, you could have chosen something to torture me, but instead you chose one of my favorite things in media, so that's great.
So what makes it a 4.5? What do you like about this scene?
I love their curiosity and non-judgment of each other's erotic minds. I love their communication. I love that they don't diss each other, but they do ask questions. And on a superficial level, it's a good model of how to approach the fact that your partner masturbates without you, or the fact that you masturbate without your partner, right? That's the superficial level. But on a deeper level, I feel like this is a good model of how to navigate gender bullshit that all of us are carrying around, regardless of your gender or your partner's gender. There is some junk that is just in you, and it prevents us from becoming our full erotic selves. And this is a great example, without requiring Roy to change and become a person who, like, articulates his feelings in flowing sonnets. He can still be himself and also not buy into the lies that he's not allowed to be vulnerable or passionate, and that for someone to love that about him is a kink. But I can't go to a full 5, right?
Why?
I understand that they needed to be efficient in the storytelling. They're making a television show, but I do wish there were more non-genital touch before he goes right for the vulva.
Oh, right. We can't see the video, but he goes full face into the crotch in the final scene.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to imagine that in real life, he would spend some time with his hands all over her and his mouth on, like, her knees and her inner thighs and, like, all that very sensitive area before he goes anywhere near the clit. And I want to mention that I am making assumptions about her genital organization, that he's a cisgender woman with all the it's a girl's parts. We don't know that for sure, but I'm going to assume that for expediency right now. Another part that's missing is that she's really worried. Like, he says, give me your phone. She doesn't know why she's giving him her phone. It's only when she sees that he put on the video that she knows everything is okay. And she goes from worried to aroused in like 2 seconds. And again, expediency, it's a television show, but like in real life, it would probably take more of a warm-up.
Right, sure. That's a little bit unrealistic. All right, so you're giving the scene from Ted Lasso a 4.5. I'm putting it on the books, I'm marking it down, and
I'm sure the producers of Ted Lasso will be very impressed by that.
oh, they are definitely listening right now, and they have a lot to say. Just kidding. I'm kidding. Okay, so next week we're going to answer another question, and it's going to be about a concept that you introduced me to, Emily, which is the enthusiastic maybe.
Okay.
Come As You Are is a production of Pushkin Industries and Madison Wells. It's hosted by Emily Nagoski. You can find Emily on Instagram at @eNagoski and on Twitter at Emily Nagoski. You can also sign up for her newsletter at emilynagoski.com, where she writes about everything from the clitoris in your mind to orgasm after having a hysterectomy. It's an incredible newsletter. Highly recommend it. This show is co-hosted and lead produced by me, Mo Laborde. You can find me online at Mo Laborde and on TikTok at podcast.slut. Sorry, Mom. My co-producer on this show is the fabulous Brittany Brown. Our editor is Kate Parkinson Morgan. Sound design and mix by Ann Pope. Executive producers are Mia LaBelle and Lital Malad. At Pushkin, thanks to Heather Fain, Carly Migliori, Sophie Crane, Courtney Guarino, Jason Gambrell, Julia Barton, John Schnars, and Jacob Weisberg. At Madison Wells, thanks to Kylie Williams, Elizabeth Goodstein, and Gigi Pritzker. Additional thanks to Rich Stevens, Lindsay Edgecombe, Frolic Media, and Peter Acker at Armadillo Audio Group. Original music for this series was composed by Amelia Nagoski and arranged and recorded by Alexandra Kalinowski. Additional music from Epidemic Sound. You can find Pushkin on all social platforms at Pushkin Pods, and you can sign up for our newsletter at pushkin.fm. If you love this show and others from Pushkin Industries, consider subscribing to Pushkin Plus. Pushkin Plus is a podcast subscription that offers bonus content and uninterrupted listening for only $4.99 a month. Look for Pushkin Plus on Apple Podcast subscriptions or at pushkin.fm. If you subscribe to Pushkin Plus, you can hear Come As You Are and other Pushkin shows ad-free, very nice, and you'll get episodes a week early. Sign up on the Come As You Are show page in Apple Podcasts or at pushkin.fm. To find more Pushkin podcasts, listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen.